And welcome to the third hour of American Agenda. I'm Joe Pinion in for Bob Sellers.
And I'm Heather Childers. And we're now joined by our host, retired Marine Corps Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff, Republican strategist Ash Wright, and Project 21 member and former Trump appointee Derek Hawley. Welcome to everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Hi.
All right, well, President Biden holding a bipartisan meeting today with mayors and governors at the White House on his major infrastructure plan. The plan, according to President Biden, is to build the economy back better by investing in infrastructure, protecting our climate, and supporting the next generation of workers and families. The gathering at the White House comes as President Biden continues to rally support for the $3 trillion package, as questions remain about how exactly this spending bill will be paid for. A deal has been reached in the Senate that could allow the huge bill to proceed without any GOP support as long as the Democrats stick together, according to Senator Chuck Schumer. Look, well, he said specifically every major program that President Biden has asked for is funded in a robust way. Fellow Democrat Senator Joe Manchin wants to know more about how we'll pay for it, saying, I think everything should be paid for. We've put enough free money out. Let's bring in our panel for their thoughts. Ash, I'll start with you. Number one, to the extent that anything is paid for, when clearly we don't have trillions of dollars sitting around in the Federal Reserve, they're paid for by increasing taxes on businesses, increasing taxes on job creators, which serves to only drive up prices at a time when we're already seeing record inflation to the tune of 13-year record. How do we make any sense of this nonsensical spending?
Right, exactly. And I think if this were just about infrastructure, that would make perfect sense. And the spending of this bill that is for infrastructure makes sense for our nation. We have big bridges that are collapsing. Problem is that we're coming out off of COVID spending. We've already spent trillions and trillions of dollars. In order to make this bill pass, they're going to have to actually change the statutory limit of the amount that the United States can borrow. And that's a big problem. When we start doing that, I mean, our debt is already out of control, and it's going to fall back on to the business owner and to the taxpayer. And frankly, it's not. The problem is it's the health care, it's the family services. This is a bill that's essentially a bait and switch. They sold it to Republicans and called it bipartisan under transportation, and then went in today and tacked on health care, family services, and everything else behind it, and a bunch of pork. And now the taxpayer is going to be forced to pay for a bipartisan bill that's it's essentially going to send the country broke, as if we're not already.
Yeah, Jessie Jane, what about that? An effort to really, truly make it non-bipartisan and pass it through reconciliation, because you have to include all of these other infrastructure plans in it. You're calling human infrastructure and social infrastructure, everything but traditional roads, bridges, infrastructure as we think of it.
Well, it just reminds me of the shovel ready that we saw under President Obama. And when we look at the cash for clunkers that we saw under President Obama, and how about the energy that was put into the investments by President Obama that caused Solyndra to basically collapse? We put in so much money for the exact same thing before with almost minimal or no results. So the Democrats love to label things that will entice the American people to support it, but they leave off what it really is. For example, let's say they squeeze in there a few veteran stimulation opportunities that allow veterans more opportunity. And then Republicans vote against this. Guess what? The Democrats would come back and say they're anti-veteran. They leave off all of the pork-filled labels that they already have going on. $3 trillion. There was a time we didn't even have a national debt, not that long ago, that hadn't even hit $8 trillion. So where we are at today is just astounding that this president seems to think that the rich and the businesses will pay for it, and the businesses are too smart. They're going to export their jobs, send them overseas, send their productions overseas, and they will also ensure that the wealthy will hide under their cash cows, and we, the American middle class, will be burdened with this debt.
Well, Derek, I want to come to you because, again, to Jesse's point, the left, they're proficient at the sloganeering. They dole out the comfort food for the masses like anybody, like it's nobody's business. How do we get people to see through the phrases to get down to the substance, whether we're talking about pulling an all-star game out of Georgia that disproportionately hurts black businesses, whether we're talking about labeling voting rights in Texas as regressive, and the time when we were actually expanding access? How do we get people to look at the substance and recognize how it's adversely impacting the very people Democrats claim they want to help?
You know, it's unfortunate, but, you know, we as conservatives, we have to do a better job ourselves with our own messaging and getting the word out about what's really going on. For example, tomorrow, I've been invited back to give testimony before the House Select Committee on the climate crisis, and of all things. So, because all these things are, everything that the Democrats are doing is hidden under the guise of something else. For example, right now, with all of this climate and energy thing that's going on, it's hidden under the guise of environmental justice. Well, in your mind, you're thinking, what's wrong with environmental justice? But with environmental justice, they're trying to shut down the oil and gas industry. So we, again, have to do a better job ourselves of our own messaging and letting the American people what's really going on.
I mean, Derek, just quickly to that specific point, you talk about even this week we had the White House come out and say they wanted to encourage OPEC to increase production. For our people at home, OPEC is an actual Middle Eastern cartel. So we've gone from energy independence here in America underneath President Trump to a Biden administration who says that climate change is the greatest threat to the homeland, while they allow Russia to build a pipeline to Germany carrying, in their own words, the dirtiest natural gas on the planet. How is that in any ways consistent with anything they claim that they care about? Ash, I'll come to you. We're basically talking about that same thing, how Democrats are never actually delivering on what they're actually advertising.
Right, exactly. And that's the issue, is it's never what it actually is. It's always this great bait and switch. It's always this, we need more money for this or more money to save the climate. And it's always these great social agendas. But at the end of the day, it's really just more spending to help them in their districts and prolong them continuing to stay in power.
All right, going to thank our panel. Stand by with us.